Welcome to Relish Books. Today I'm talking a little bit about Leo Tolstoy's War and Peace. I mentioned it a little bit in my video about Anna Karenina and that I think War and Peace is a better novel. So I'm just going to talk about that a little bit today and why I kind of feel that way. So with Anna Karenina, it's a very focused on the social side of Russian life, and I think sometimes people might think it's a better novel because it kind of sticks to that, rather than War and Peace that is pretty evenly divided between the social side of Russian life, basically the people at home, versus the battlefront of the Napoleonic Wars. But since Anna Karenina is also split between two different plot lines, I feel like it's pretty as equally divided, and I personally just enjoy War and Peace a lot more. I like the characters a lot more, and I think the interest is just more with the detailed accounts of the wars going on and then the people back home. Of course, while the war stuff is exciting just from like an interest point of view, I prefer the side that's all the people back home and their relationships and interests. I also just find, again, the biggest thing that this comes down to is just a difference in the sets of characters. War and Peace has much more real, enjoyable characters for me. And they have, like Anna Karenina, they have a lot of ups and downs, and there's a lot of struggle between good and bad. The characters are very imperfect, and there's the same idea of like struggling to be better and searching for higher meaning in things. A lot of the same themes as Anna Karenina, but just a lot better, I feel like. I still am not going to say that it's a classic that I consider like absolutely essential. I wouldn't put it on like required reading. It's so big, and it's a lot of commitment to read all the way through it. And while it is good, if you don't want to read it, I would say it's not worthwhile to force it on anybody. But it was published in 1869, and it kind of follows the stories of a bunch of different people, but the main characters are Pierre, Natasha, and Andrew at first, and then after a while it kind of focuses down more. Again, there's a very big cast of characters. It'll take chapters with a bunch of different people, but you kind of feel the main energy of the stories kind of resolving back to these people who are very likable. I really liked Prince Andrew. The copy I had said Andrew. A lot of the translations and a lot of pronunciations will say Andre, which is probably correct since it's Russian. But anyway, if you see different spellings and translations, that's why. But the copy I read called him Andrew. I really like him, and I didn't at first. He kind of opens up with, you feel kind of frustrated by his life, his kind of coldness towards his wife, that he doesn't really think that he loves that much anymore. And then after her death, though, he really and his like grief over that, and he kind of opens up more and becomes a really good character. So yeah, I really like him. Pierre is kind of he's a fun character. Again, he's frustrating in a lot of ways, but he feels very real. He's kind of this drunk mess of a guy who really wants to be better, who is constantly searching for meanings in life that will make him better. If I remember, he's the illegitimate son of a very important man. So it's kind of interesting to see his he's not like an outcast of the Russian society, which is just an interesting note on the society in general, but he is kind of rejected by his family. But he's not like looked down on in the way that you might expect from some cultures and time periods. But it does kind of make this awkwardness in some situations. But so he's a really great character to watch his progression and his like observance of the wars and his how that changes him. One of my favorite things about the book is his friendship with Andre. It's just really neat. Good male friendships in books are always so fun. I also really like Natasha. So right off the bat, you have like all the most main characters that I really like, and that makes all the difference because, again, I don't like the characters in Anna Karenina very much. Natasha is a fun character. She's so wild and impulsive, and a lot of times in a book, it could be unrealistic that she is in love or thinks she's in love 3 separate times with 3 different men over the course of just a few years. But when you kind of know her personality and understand her, it doesn't feel that unrealistic. And you can kind of connect with her. And while her like wild relationship, because she first falls in love with Andre, they have a very sweet romance. And then she becomes like enticed by this bad guy, Anatole. And it's weird because it's almost like she feels herself under his power. It's like she knows that she shouldn't be with him, but she feels just this almost like this fatal attraction to him, which is weird. So it's not really like she's actually in love with him. There was this weird attraction. Obviously, that I don't like that part of the story, but it is very important to the story. And then they're prevented, but Andre breaks off their engagement because or won't get back with her because of that. But then the scene where he forgives her as he's wounded after a battle or whatever is one of the sweetest scenes in the book. If you like romance, I don't like romance as a genre most of the time if it's cheap romance, but you really can't beat a good romance for me. So that scene, I would go back and reread that scene over and over. The book would kind of like open up to that place of its own after a while because I would go back and reread it a lot because it's really sweet. And then eventually she has a romance with Pierre. So there's just all these different romances, and again, you kind of need a book that long to be able to make it realistic, to have all these different relationships. But I like both of the romances because there's really only 2 main ones. The other one was just kind of put in there to mess things up. Both romance with Andre and Pierre are really good, and you kind of see how Natasha is suited to their different personalities and needs, especially as she kind of changes a lot over the course of the book. So there's good character development. I would like it if the book was a little shorter. It didn't feel super long. It didn't like drag a lot as I read it. I felt like I was able to get through it pretty quickly. But there's so much side stuff, so much stuff with other characters that aren't super important. Just long, detailed descriptions of balls and this and that and the other, and all these different relationships, intrigues, which does really show, again, Russian social life and society. So it is good for that. And again, a lot of stuff about Napoleon. The book really has a large focus on that. Some people could say that's, a lot of the time talk more about the romance, but it's at least as much about that. Napoleon's invasion of Russia and all the battles and his sacking of the cities that you see is a huge part of it. So it is kind of a historical and political novel. So if you enjoy that kind of thing, it's really good for that. It was a little much for me because that's not usually what I'm into, but I did enjoy a lot of it. I think the ending of the book, though, was sad for me. For some reason, reading it, I kind of wished, because you have like a time jump and you see where the characters kind of end up. And there were several things that were unsatisfying to me. There is a character who's in it a lot. He's one of the main characters. He gets a lot of chapters devoted to him from his kind of perspective. And that is Natasha's brother, whose name I'm not remembering at the moment. Maybe because I don't like him. I just really didn't like him. He had kind of a romance with Sonia, who's their cousin or family friend who like grew up with their family. They're like in love, and I thought their romance was kind of sweet. And then he basically gets bored of her, forgets about her, and moves on to Mary, who is Prince Andre's sister. So there's kind of these, all these interconnected relationships, and I really don't like him, so I really don't like Natasha's brother. I really don't like Andre's sister. And then those two get together. So it's like the characters that I least like ending up together. And I did like Sonia. And so I felt really bad about that. And I just didn't like him for doing that. And everybody just kind of treats Sonia really badly. She was like this sweet girl from the beginning who really helped Natasha and was there for her. And she just gets kind of thrown under the bus a lot in a lot of ways. That's something I really don't like about the book. And they kind of, I think because of all the things that happened to her and her disappointment in romance, she has kind of a sad, depressing ending, and she kind of got changed for the worse, her character. So I really don't like that. That's very unsatisfying. And it's really sad kind of how, it's sad and sweet at the same time. You kind of see Prince Andre's son from his first marriage, who's now being cared for by these other people, by his aunt and uncle, who don't love him and don't give him the care and attention that they do to their own children. And so that's, you kind of see that at the end of the book. And you kind of see in him, it's kind of, that's something that I really like about the ending, that it's like a reflection back to the beginning of the book. So you feel like you've gone in this circle, because a lot of the thoughts and feelings that Andre had at the beginning of the book, you now see in his young son. This aloneness and sadness that he has because the people around him don't treat him well. And so, I don't know, I did like that. But ultimately, after everything you've gone through, I think the end was pretty realistic. But it's like you want it to be more fairy tale ending, where things are happy and perfect. And instead you see some of the real life things, how even the people that got together that are happy together and were like in love, you see some of the problems and just daily struggles that they have in their marriages and with their families, and just how people get a lot of the time. Like, they can be as much in love as, a book could ever show you, but then, they it kind of is a real life type thing. You see them kind of bickering and all that. So it's kind of a sad note to end the book on, kind of a disappointment, but it is pretty realistic, I feel like. Again, I just like the book a lot better than Anna Karenina. I think it's good in a lot of ways. It is definitely a great literary work, but not the best thing in the world. I wouldn't put it on my top 10 or top 20 or anywhere near there, but it is really good. So that's just what I think of War and Peace.